Respawn has removed a lot of things from Apex, either before their release or after their release, and they've removed that many things that I've made several videos just about stuff they've removed from the game. So let's check out all of these videos and see everything they've removed from the game. Much like an exclusive currency, a game mode that was only in the game for 1 hour, paying coins for heirlooms, and also the most pay-to-win skin ever, of which will be featured in this video along with a lot more. So I put some of the best ones into a tier list, and the ones that go at the top are going to be the things I'm so glad Respawn removed, and then at the bottom, maybe not so glad. So let's go over it. And we're starting off with a flash rather than a bang, because when Seer first came out, his tactical flashed you when it first hit you, and everybody hated this. This made Seer extremely frustrating to fight against, especially if you were playing in a dark room. This easily made Seer one of the most powerful legends in the game, so this is going in S tier because never add this back, Respawn. Moving on though, because I think a lot of you will want Respawn to add this back. Exclusive currencies for collection events. This was a currency in the Iron Crown event, and it came in every single event pack and replaced the 2 random cosmetics on each side. First of all, this currency did look pretty cool, but it allowed you to do something very interesting. It allowed you to enter the second type of event store that only allowed purchases to be done with this special type of currency. And this store had some really cool cosmetics, and pretty much all of them have never come back to Apex since. And I think it would be pretty cool for Respawn to do this, because honestly, the 2 cosmetics on the side of event packs usually aren't worth it. And that's why it's going in C, because I kind of want that back. On this next one, I'm sure a lot of you are going to agree with me, because next we're looking at the ability to get damage badges in LTMs. This was doable up until a few months ago, where if you got a 4K and 20 bomb in LTMs like Armed and Dangerous, you would get a damage badge from it. But unfortunately, in the last release of Armed and Dangerous 1 season ago, it turns out Respawn removed this. So because I think everybody wants this back and it will benefit everybody, this is going in D tier, meaning I want it back the most. Although I can't say the same for this next one, because we all like packs, right? We all love paying money for random items. Yeah, well, that bit was sarcastic because we don't. But for some reason, Respawn thought it would be a good idea to go 1 level above packs and make a charm pack. The thing is, it didn't drop 3 charms. It drops 1 charm. This thing was entirely useless. We get so many charms anyway, why would we need a charm pack? This is going in A. Maybe it could have been improved upon, but they removed it instead, and we haven't seen it since. But for the next rating, this is the smallest addition that annoyed people the most, because for some reason, around a year ago, Respawn changed every single seasonal tracker to display the logo of the season, rather than just straight up the name of the season, which is, you know, the easiest thing to do. And this annoyed a lot of people, surprisingly, to the point where people were making sheets showing which logo corresponds to each season, and it annoyed people that much. Respawn removed it not long after. I think this is a bit of tunnel vision from Respawn. They thought everyone knew the season logos because most likely they do, so they added this. And because of that, that's going in A tier. Maybe it could be improved upon one day like the other one, but I'm glad they removed it. Unlike this next one, although it may just be nostalgia talking, because Olympus came out in Season 7, and in the exact same season, it got a map update, meaning Olympus had a point of interest that was only there for half a season. And what was this? Well, this was the cargo hold. This only existed for half a season before Fight Night took where it stands. And this was a pretty fun place to fight, although it did have its issues. It was big, it was open, and you could get on the side of these boxes without activating an out of bounds timer. Although I can't vouch too much how good it was because it's been 2 years since I played on this. But really, I'm kind of indifferent to Respawn removing it. They removed it for a superior point of interest, so this is going in B tier, because meh. Although for this next tier I'm putting down, maybe I'm a bit biased because I'm an ex-Mirage main. But basically, around Season 2 or 3, I'm pretty sure, his logo changed from this to this. So they made him look a lot less like Guy Fieri, and this change affected a lot of parts of Mirage, like it changed his badges up. But it's such a small change, not a lot of people remember it, and I can live without it. So this is going in B tier because I don't really care, to be honest. But now I'm going to talk about the most controversial thing on this list, and I'm getting prepared to look at the funny comments, because Respawn at one point 2 years ago were going to remove Tap Strafe. They were so set on this, they made a tweet that is still up to this day that says they're removing it in the Season 10 collection event. But eventually they were talked down from it by, I think, Moki Sniper or something. So this tweet remains as a very weird moment in Apex's history where it could have gone a very different way, potentially into less of a movement game and a bit more controller dominated. And you all know I play keyboard and mouse, so I'm going to put this in A tier because I'm pretty glad this didn't go through. So I'm going to scoot along to the next one now to avoid the comments, because the next one is about the game mode that was only in in the game for 1 hour before it was removed due to glitches, I'm pretty sure, but there isn't much detail around this because this is the double life mode. Essentially, it's what it says on the tin. When you died in this mode, you'll respawn above where you died in a dropship and you'll be alive again. It's just really that simple, honestly. And it was removed very, very quickly. The main consensus is it was removed within 1 or 2 hours of it releasing, and on the wiki patch notes, it does say it was introduced and then removed shortly after on the 13th of April, the same day it dropped. So, because of this, and because I really wish I played it, this is going at D tier. It should come back, we should be allowed to play this, it seems very interesting. But the next one we're going to talk about, I'm pretty sure no one wants to come back, because all of you are sane, I hope, at least. But this is paying coins for heirlooms. Now, this sounds cool, but there's a twist, because back in the Iron Crown Collection event, you had to buy every single Collection event item, and then pay $32 on top to get the heirloom, rather than just unlocking it after getting every single Collection event item. So yes, at one point you could buy heirlooms with coins, just not in the way you think, because you needed to spend a lot more coins to unlock the coin purchase, if that makes sense. So this is going in S tier. I never want to see this again. Leave it with a Seer Flash, man. And I think the opinion's going to be similar with this next one we're going to go over, because this is reactive skins. But no, not the reactive skins in the battle pass. These reactive skins replaced heirlooms in collection events, and this only happened back in season 15, and the worst part was they weren't even new reactive skins, they were recolors of existing ones. So of course this is going to S tier because I'm very glad Respawn removed this, and this should never ever come back. And onto rating the next thing before we get onto the really sus one. But essentially, you may remember only a few seasons ago Respawn had a really bad hack on their hands. Basically, hackers found a new hack that allows them to reload anybody's guns against their will, and this was one of the first hacks we've seen in Apex that basically allowed hackers to control players against their will. And this was really bad because obviously you can't really kill enemies without your weapon, and you can't use your weapon when it's getting constantly reloaded. So Respawn responded to this one really quick and got it removed really quick, and because this was a super annoying hack, it's going in A tier. The reason it's not going in S tier is because I just find it interesting that the hackers actually managed to find a way to control people. I just have to respect that to some degree. And weirdly enough, this hack doesn't make me feel as sad as the next one, because the next one is a special Octane skin that was meant to release, but unfortunately it was changed at the last minute for a really weird reason. Because you may remember in the Gaiden event, it was a big anime event with loads of anime references, but it seems Respawn flew too close to the sun with one of the references. Because really early on, an Octane skin was leaked, which was Luffy from One Piece. He had a straw hat and everything. The thing is, these leaks were cool and everything, but when the skin was finally added to the game and the event came out, the straw hat was nowhere to be seen. Respawn had replaced it with a blue hat, most likely to avoid copyright issues and not copy Luffy's design too closely. So this was a really unfortunate removal from Respawn, so it's gonna hit C tier because I would have really loved to have seen this one, but I kind of understand why Respawn had to do it. I don't think they had much choice. But we'll get back to the Gaiden event later because it has one more entry in this video. But our next entry is from Vantage. Now this image may confuse you, but this is about her voice line. Basically when she came out, she had a voice line for whenever she activated her ultimate, where she cracked a really funny joke.
Location.
The thing is, this was her only voice line for doing the ultimate, so it got very annoying very quickly, to the point where it became such a big meme. Respawn noticed and removed the joke part of the voice line, so it turned from this
Echolocation.
to this.
Better angle at Echo's location.
And at the time this happened, I was making videos hating on this joke voice line, so this is going in an S, because I'm glad Respawn removed it, as it got really annoying. But back to Gaiden, because there was one thing about this event which most people didn't notice. It was the last thematic event ever, and it has been over a year since this came out, so most people have correctly assumed that Respawn have abandoned thematic events, most likely because they didn't make too much money. The thing is, these were really similar to collection events with one difference. You could buy thematic skins with crafting materials after the event ends. I could still buy the Revenant thematic event skin for really cheap, so I would imagine because people knew this, it really impacted the sales of thematic events, so Respawn stopped doing them because people would just go, hey, I like that skin, I've got no FOMO, so I'll buy it in a few months with crafting materials. So I feel really bad that Respawn removed this because it was very consumer friendly, so this is going in a C tier because I'm really sad they removed this. And the final one, the most pay to win skin ever to enter Apex, and this came out in the Sun Squad collection event, and it was this flatline iron sight. Yes, it just looks like a normal optic, and people caught onto this really quickly and started going, this is super pay to win, so Respawn put out a blog saying, no, we're actually going to nerf this in a few weeks. So it got removed really quickly. And the thing is, I do understand why this was removed, because it would have set a really dangerous precedent for future skins, and also it was just blatantly pay to win, which doesn't look very good for your company. So this is going in B tier, because I kind of wish you still had it, although I see why it was removed. And with that, the masterpiece is done. So do you agree that the stuff at the top were the best things to be removed, and the bottom ones, maybe not so much? But moving on though, with the release of Launch Royale, I thought it would be interesting to look back at things people have definitely forgotten about old Apex. Starting off with the most obvious thing you'll probably notice if you watch any Apex gameplay from 2019. The visual clutter was absolutely ridiculous. Basically, every time you shot your gun in the early seasons of Apex, it will produce an insane amount of smoke and flash, which was really annoying to see through. Luckily, Respawn took the feedback to change this, because when you compare this to what we have today, it does look really annoying. Here's something that's guaranteed to give you nostalgia if you miss old Apex though. The old lobby. The old lobby was beautiful, it was simple, and the simple sight of this takes a lot of people back to when they first installed Apex and had no idea what was what. I mean, there was literally a point where none of us knew what the legends' names were. We had to learn them, which is weird to think about. Also, in the early days of Apex, some of the legends had their icons redone, which was definitely well needed, because as nostalgic as these icons are, I think I prefer the ones Respawn have today. Speaking of things Apex randomly updated, a lot of people don't know, but the Voidwalker skin wasn't actually originally called Voidwalker. No. When it first released, literally for the first day it was out, it was called Ghost Wraith. And then, randomly, without announcement, Respawn changed the name to Voidwalker, which confused a lot of people, but this is so long ago and so niche, I would say 99% of people don't even remember this. And I'm fairly sure that's the only time Respawn have changed a skin name with no reason. Of course they changed this skin's name back in the day, but that was because of drama. One meme though that sprung up quickly in the Apex community was the Mozambique, which is a shame because this meme has kind of died down these days, but the Mozambique was originally a meme because it was so weak and useless, and players absolutely hated this weapon. And I cannot stress, people hated this gun so bad. Respawn actually added an Easter egg animation in the game to reference how bad people hated the gun, as in the early days of Apex, if you switched out the Mozambique for another gun, your character wouldn't just drop the Mozambique. No, they would throw it at the ground with full force. I don't know why Respawn removed this animation because it was quite funny, but it's kind of sad to see the Mozambique here meme has kind of died off. Another animation that Respawn removed was the OK sign. This was a really rare animation for Wraith that she would get when coming out of her phase, but I cannot stress, this animation was insanely rare, to the point where a few people suspect it to be 1 in a million. Unfortunately though, Respawn removed this animation in the earlier days of Apex. And some of you may not be aware, but this animation is actually a reference to this animation from Titanfall 2 in the time travel mission. I really wish there were more rare animations like this, because the only rare animations we really get these days are attached to heirlooms. Although you're not an OG player if you don't remember this, because very, very early in Apex's life, the ultimate accelerant used to have a different appearance when you would hover over it. Instead of looking like this, it looks like this, and it makes sense why Respawn changed the icon, because this looks nothing like the actual ultimate accelerant. Although it makes me wonder if Respawn originally planned for the ultimate accelerant to be kind of like a shield battery that you pull up before they redesigned it to be a little iPad thing. Although the early days of Apex weren't all perfect, there were plenty, and I mean plenty of issues. For example, the loot on Kings Canyon when it first came out was genuinely atrocious. It was that bad, it spawned a several-minute clip of a streamer running around Kings Canyon trying to find a simple gun, and they literally couldn't find a gun. It got that bad that they rage quit. And a lot of people do say E-District doesn't have the best loot, but honestly, it will never be as bad as Apex when it originally came out. Also, here's a weird thing about old Apex that many of you probably don't remember, and it's the fact that the dropship used to go 50% slower than it does now. If you watch a lot of old gameplay, you will start to notice this, and Respawn eventually sped it up, which I think was for the better, because now people hit the ground at a similar time. Although Apex devs still don't really like how the dropship works, and lately they have been innovating, trying to make new ways for people to spawn into the match. But these new ways have kind of come to a mixed reception, so we'll have to see how that one goes. Going back to Apex's old lobby though, there were a few oddities with it. First of all, when Apex first released, it didn't have duos. A lot of people don't remember this, but Apex actually got duos in Season 2. Also, there was a tab called Armory at the top, which has now been replaced with loadouts, and also the in-game store looked pretty different. This was kind of before Apex really figured out how it wanted to sell skins, and before it invented collection events. By the way, a lot of you new players who started playing after Season 10 definitely don't know this, but Evo Shields weren't always in the game. Evo Shields were only invented during the Season 4 collection event, so before that point, Evo Shields weren't real. You just had to pick up a good shield off the ground. Honestly though, the invention and evolution of Evo Shields has been absolutely huge in Apex. I think we can all confidently say, after having them for a while, the perk system being attached to the Evo Shield system is genuinely genius, and it gives people a lot more reason to go out and fight. Apex has improved a lot, but it is also very confusing now. I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to remember every single Legends perk. I can never be prepared anymore. One thing a lot of people want to bring back is Mirage's old ultimate, because he's a legend who got a rework before reworks were cool. As, if you used his old ultimate, first of all, the decoys that came out of you wouldn't actually mimic you. They would just spread out, so this fooled absolutely nobody after the first 2 days of Apex. And also, after Mirage ulted, he was temporarily fully invisible. And not invisible in the way that he is these days, where he turns invisible for like 1 second. No, he will be invisible for several seconds, and it would allow him to relocate to a new area, which was cool, but Mirage's new ultimate is way better. Believe it or not, players actually got to beta test Mirage's new ultimate before it was released, as Mirage's new ultimate was first unveiled in an LTM called Dummies Big Day, where the ultimate was used on one of the dummies and it was called Emergency Dance Party. And when people liked it so much and said it would be a cool Mirage ultimate, it was eventually given to Mirage. Dummies Big Day is something people really miss in the history of Apex, because basically it was just a mode where you played a faceless dummy and got abilities randomly assigned to you. And the dummy's abilities were brand new unique abilities like Area of Effect Healing, spawning healing items, Emergency Dance Party, and many more. There have been rumours recently that Respawn is bringing back Dummies Big Day, but as with all rumours, we'll have to wait and see. One thing though I think we're going to be waiting for ages is Apex adding back the select fire to the Havoc, because yes, believe it or not, there used to be a second firing mode on the Havoc and it was single fire. The Havoc single fire mode basically turned it into a sniper where you shot a laser beam that would instantly hit scan damage anybody it hit. Unfortunately though, when Respawn took the select fire hop up off the ground, it also took select fire away from the Havoc, and we haven't had it since. And this has been almost 4 years now. Although 2 years ago there was a glitch to put select fire on the Havoc in the firing range, but it only lasted for a few weeks until Respawn eventually patched it, so they clearly want to erase its history. One thing that a lot of new players may not realize is that these dinosaurs on the edge of Kings Canyon were actually once part of the Kings Canyon map, and they were that big of a part of it they could actually kill you, as there were certain areas in the map where the dinosaurs would lift their leg up for a few seconds and then drop their leg, basically creating a death trap for any player who decided to stand in this area, as it was only a matter of time until they got crushed. This season though, in Season 22, we got plenty of Battle Pass changes, but Apex's old Battle Pass is much weirder and much worse, because when the first Battle Pass came out, a lot of people hated it. First of all, apparently the skins were really bad, but second of all, they had an extremely dumb system where badge level ups were rewards for hitting certain tiers, taking up space that could be used by actual rewards. Luckily, Respawn cut this out and removed it in the Season 2 Battle Pass. And you may remember at the start of the video, I was talking about Respawn potentially adding an OG mode to the game, which would give us OG weapon stats, basically temporarily reverting the game's meta to Season 1 and 0. And if this does happen, make sure to pick up the Wingman, because the Wingman in Apex used to be a machine. It was the only weapon high skilled players used to use, because if you could aim, you could dominate lobbies, and I mean like 30 kills. But it's not just content that Respawn has scrapped. They've also scrapped many skins and cosmetics, so let's take a look at them, because trust me, they scrapped a lot of bangers like this skin from 2020, which was nicknamed the pandemic skin because it was added into the files back when COVID was at its peak, and at the time when this was data mined, it was suspected to be some sort of COVID-19 relief / charity skin, because it had a Watson with a mask on it, which was pretty cool honestly, and also 2 gloved hands fist bumping each other, and it also had an animated element. Unfortunately, after a lot of waiting, Respawn never released the skin, and then eventually removed it from the files, deeming it as scrapped, killing one of the most beloved unreleased skins in Apex. In Apex though, it's not just weapon skins that get scrapped. Respawn have unfortunately scrapped many cool legendary legend skins. For example, this is one of the more famous legendary skins Respawn scrapped. This was added to the files back in Season 16, and Respawn intended to release it during the Golden Week store event, as this skin quite obviously followed a Japanese theme. But as we approached the event, we realized Respawn didn't have the appropriate code to sell this skin in the event, and when the event came around, this skin was nowhere to be seen. So a lot of us just said, oh, we'll wait till Season 17, it will surely come out in Season 17. but this skin simply never came to the game, and to this day, we still see no sign of it being released, so currently this skin is as good as scrapped. Also, there's a very cool Lifeline legendary that we've been seeing floating around the files and leaks for years, and it seems like Respawn scrapped this one as well. This skin is the Lifeline Firefighter skin, and we first saw this skin in the big leaks back in 2022, where loads of future legends got leaked. At the time of the leak, the skin was very basic and still in development, and we didn't see any more news of it until over a year later during season 17, where it was added to the files with a full model. So obviously, upon seeing this, a lot of people expected this Lifeline skin to be released very soon, but the story's the same as the other story. It just never came. And here we are 4 seasons later, and considering that this skin has been floating around for 2 years, surely by now Respawn would have found a moment to sell it. So I'm classing this one as scrapped until we have further confirmation of anything else. There are also a ton of legendary colours that Respawn have created, but take ages to release, and you know, some of these may well be scrapped, because whenever a legend comes out, they have 2 legendary skin models, and Respawn creates loads of legendary skin recolours of those models to eventually sell in the store for legend tokens, but a lot of the time, Respawn just don't get around to releasing these. Seriously, we've been waiting for this one for a long time, we've been waiting for this one for a long time, and only a month ago a Catalyst recolor came out that we've been waiting for 6 whole seasons, which is just insane. There's one really famous recolor that we think Respawn scrapped though, even though they added it to the files ready to sell, and it was a recolor of the Phase Walker skin. This recolor was added into the game back in season 16 with the name Warpatch and was ready to be released, but a lot of people don't know it was in the files way before that, as early as season 9. Yet for some reason Respawn still haven't released it, despite its likeliness to sell really well being really high, considering it will come with a special select animation. Likely the reason they haven't sold this skin yet, and it's most likely scrapped, is because this recolor right here looks really similar to an existing Phase Walker recolor. I mean, if you look at them side by side, you probably can't tell the difference. So a lot of people do think because of this, the Warpatch recolor skin is scrapped. Weirdly enough, at the same time the Warpatch skin was added to the files, Respawn also added a recolor of the season 1 Reactive Battle Pass Havoc. The recolor was extremely simple, and it basically just turned the Havoc blue. But I think this skin is definitely scrapped because, if you're not aware, during the Void Reckoning event, Respawn released a very similar Havoc Reactive recolor, but it looked 10 times cooler with better effects. So it's likely that this skin was scrapped and eventually upgraded to this version of the skin. And it goes even deeper because that's not the only Reactive Havoc recolor Respawn have had in the files. They also had this Reactive recolor where it's just a wood grain skin on the reactive gun, and this one is definitely scrapped because it's terrible, and if they release this, nobody will be buying it, especially with these recolor shards. By the way, skins aren't the only thing Respawn have scrapped or not released, because there are actually 2 poses in the game right now that Respawn won't release for some reason, and one of them is actually viewable in game, but not equipable by anybody. First, there's a chance that if you kill a flyer and it drops a death box, one of the death boxes will be displaying a pose that is not in the game, and that is this Bangalore pose. This pose has been in the files since at least season 2, and if you have a hacked version of Apex, you can equip this pose yourself, but Respawn won't release it. The same situation goes with this Wraith pose that was meant to release in the Void Walker collection event all those years ago, but they didn't release it for some reason. The unreleased items don't have to be from early seasons though, because back in the Unshackled event, Respawn made more skins than they should have, and they now have leftover skins that they can't really release into any other event because they don't match the theme. In the Unshackled event, Respawn made this Ash skin, but it never came into the event, and simply Respawn never released it, so this one is as good as scrapped. And there are many examples from recent and older events of Respawn making mostly epic skins or banner frames for these events and them never releasing. There is a page on the Apex wiki called Unreleased Content, and you can see all of the banner frames that Respawn just haven't released for some reason. That's a lot of art unfortunately gone to waste. What about that whole collection event that got scrapped though? Because it's true, Respawn did scrap a whole collection event nearly 2 years ago now. And trust me, despite this being a collection event full of skins, none of these will ever make it back to the game. This collection event was intended to be a collaboration between Apex esports teams and Apex, where Apex would make skins for the esports teams, which would allow the esports teams to earn a tiny bit of money through these skins. But unfortunately, there were issues. After the skins were made and added to the files ready to be released into the game, lots of news started popping up that disagreements between Respawn and the esports teams were occurring, because Respawn was being really dodgy with the ways they were going to dish out the money money earned from these skins to the esports teams, and also they were being extremely unfair, not letting the esports teams have a lot of the income from the sold skins. So eventually a lot of esports teams just pulled out of Apex on a whole, and Respawn had to cancel this collection event. And all of these skins from the collection event are very unlikely to ever come back to Apex, because a lot of the teams who had skins have now left Apex completely, or even changed their logos. And this is one of Apex's biggest fumbles, and the thing that amazes me is that Respawn had these skins finished and still took the approach to scrap the skins instead of giving the esports teams a fair deal to get the money from the sold skins. Just a whole mess. One skin that wasn't scrapped through drama though was this R31 with an Oni mask on it, which was meant to come out in season 19 in a collection event, but it suffered the same fate as many of the skins on this list. Respawn made too many skins for a collection event and were not able to release it when the collection event first came out, so it was just eventually scrapped. Another skin I should also mention is this Maggie skin. This Maggie skin has been floated around in leaks for over a year now, yet we have not seen it yet. It feels like Respawn make a lot of skins with a cool concept, but then are unable to make other skins that follow the same theme that they can sell with the skin, which is massively unfortunate. And I can't go this whole video without mentioning the entirety of Apex Mobile before it was discontinued, because you may not be aware, but Apex Mobile had its own set of unique skins, which were concepted and drawn up by the same people who were concepting and drawing up skins for main Apex. And it is a massive shame that now Apex Mobile is discontinued, these models are just going to sit and gather dust for the rest of eternity. And the crazy thing is, there's probably 10 times more skins that Respawn have scrapped for one reason or another. We have only seen these scrapped skins because Respawn added them to the game's files at one point or another. Although there was a leak on March the 25th, 2022 that revealed a lot of content that Respawn were working on via an internal leak. The thing is, a lot of the content we saw in these leaks actually didn't make it to the game. Respawn scrapped it before it even touched the game, and a lot of it is very interesting. So let's start out with the most notorious thing from this leak, the Legends roster. Bear in mind though, when this Legend roster got leaked, we didn't even have Newcastle yet. So from this Legend roster, we did get Newcastle, we did get Vantage, we did get Catalyst, we did get Conduit, and we did get Caliber, who we think was eventually moved on to being Ballistic. And crazily enough, in season 21 was the first season where we didn't get a Legends that was leaked all those years ago. Obviously with Alter. Even though Alter uses old Revenant abilities, which is just a can of worms I don't want to open right now, but the Legends we didn't get were Jester, Phantom, Scryer, and Uplink. So what did these Legends do? Because we may just get them one day. Well, first of all, we have Scryer, whose passive is to spectate your killer, which is dumb because this passive only works when you die and your team is still alive. Their tactical was to Optic Haunt, which is a parasite trap that reveals the target's vision. And the strange thing is, we did see gameplay of this ability, but never how it truly worked. This is literally all we saw. And Scryer's ultimate was this, which was later repurposed to be Catalyst's ultimate ability, which means Scryer is probably completely scrapped. And if you're wondering what Catalyst's ultimate was before it was replaced with Scryer's ultimate, it was this. Yeah, no wonder it was replaced. Jester is the next Legend out of this roster that Respawn were cooking, but I think they were doing more burning than cooking, because Jester's tactical ability was a Spectre drop, where he would cool down 3 Spectres to guard one area, and you can only have one of these active at a time, which is an extremely strange passive and wouldn't work in buildings, and there'll just be so many issues to this thing. Jester's ultimate would create a short-lived cloaking device that hides all players in the small area. The cloak lasts for 6 seconds after you leave the cloak field, which is honestly a really cool idea because you could gather all your team up in one place, drop a cloak, and then you're all invisible to rush enemies for 6 whole seconds, which is pretty cool. Jester's passive was really interesting actually. You can turn any grenade into a proximity mine that you can stick to surfaces by pressing B. I can imagine mixing this passive with kidnapping people with Wraith would be absolutely insane. Also, Jester was a scrapped pilot from Titanfall 2, so maybe Jester could have been a pilot, which would have been pretty awesome to see. And also, Jester is a simulacrum, so this would have been a new simulacrum legend. But honestly, I think Jester may be scrapped once again, because these abilities are just dumb, honestly. And I think if they're released, people wouldn't be happy with them. They definitely need some work, but I would love Jester as a character concept to come to Apex. Uplink is the next legend that we haven't got yet, or we may never get, and their abilities are very Overwatch-like, specifically Baptiste, because his ultimate is an immortality relay beacon, a deployable satellite beacon that prevents allies in the signal area from being downed. And honestly, I think this is scrapped because this is such a crazy ability in Apex specifically. Maybe it works in other games, but in Apex, I think it might be a bit too powerful. His tactical was a shield satellite, which is a satellite that follows friendlies to regenerate their shields and revive, which honestly also makes me think Uplink is definitely scrapped because Conduit is kind of now the shield giving legend, and he had a passive that just boosted some legend statistics if they were in his area. The last legend that we didn't get off this roster was Phantom, who definitely seems like an insane legend honestly, because his passive was literally a double jump. As simple as that, kind of a pilot ability. His tactical is a hook shot where you hook yourself off a wall and hang from it, which honestly, let's be real for a moment, it's cool but definitely useless compared to the tactical abilities we are getting now. And his ultimate ability is a void grenade that will put anybody in its radius into the void, which is literally Fade's ability from Apex Mobile, which is strange, which makes a lot of us think Phantom was just a code name for Fade, and Respawn were planning to bring Fade to the Apex PC edition, but we will probably never know because once again, I'm fairly sure this legend is scrapped again, if not heavily reworked. On top of that, from this roster, there was a legend called Caliber in it who was reworked into being ballistic. As you can see, Caliber's abilities are very similar to ballistic, having a weapon sling that allows you to store a third weapon, and also an unlimited ammo boost for your team. At the time though, ballistic's ammo boost wasn't just a thing where he smashed both of his fists together, he would actually put down a physical ammo box, and also his tactical was the ability to put down an actual turret. Yeah, ballistic's Whistler right now is definitely the better decision instead of a turret. That's not it for these leaks though, because these leaks covered a lot, and loads of stuff unfortunately got scrapped, and it seems a lot of the stuff got scrapped because it was in development for arenas, and we all know what happened to arenas. First of all, we saw this pretty intense map that was leaked to be an arenas map, and it looks really cool. It reminds me of the Harvester from World's Edge. This does look like a small, solid map, especially made for 3v3, but obviously, Respawn couldn't even repurpose this one into a team deathmatch map, I guess, because it is just a bit small. Although the vibes of this map look awesome, and I would have loved to have known the lore before we unfortunately lost it, I guess. One that will make everyone pretty mad was this map in development for arenas once again. This is a really awesome Viking themed map. You can see right here there is a statue of a Viking with two spears, and then right next to him is one of the team spawns. This looks like a really fun map to play on, but honestly seems a bit open, and once again it was probably scrapped because arenas was deleted from the game. I'm assuming because of the snow on this map and the trees being from World's Edge, this map would have been related to Bloodhound and would have likely been something to do with Bloodhound's Old Ways tribe. I really hope this one does come back to be a team deathmatch map in the future, but it's been 2 years since we saw it this deep into development, so honestly, I kind of have no hope. Another map we saw is this, which seems to be a big city and looks very Titanfall 2-like. Most likely from the track going through the middle that does give heavy Eden vibes. At the time 2 years ago, this map did seem to need a bit of polish, but once again, I think it died in the arenas purge. At the time of these leaks, Respawn were developing new modes, which were Team Deathmatch, Gun Run, and also this mode. Before we get onto that mode though, Respawn were specifically developing TDM only maps. This was meant to be a team deathmatch map. As you can see, there is an ancient version of the user interface at the top, but unfortunately I guess it was scrapped because it's been 2 years and we haven't got this. It seemed like a really cool map. It seems like it was a city set in a tropical area, but maybe Respawn decided to not use this map because they were reusing that idea for the next actual Battle Royale map, which is going to be District, which is a city map that is set only a few hundred kilometers away from the Stormpoint map, so it would still be a map in a tropical area. So maybe don't be too mad about losing a whole team deathmatch city map because it probably did get reused heavily in the next Battle Royale map. As a reference for how old these leaks were, this is an old version of Gun Run and the user interface honestly looks pretty sad, although the leaker did showcase an early version of the solo School Town map. While Respawn were cooking Gun Run and Team Deathmatch, they were also cooking another mode. In this mode, you would pick up a ball from your side and then deliver it to their enemy's goal. And Respawn probably have their reasons for not bringing this mode to the game, but the thing I want you to focus on is the fact that this map Respawn are showcasing here is a map from Titanfall 2, specifically this colony map right here. The crazy part is though, this map wasn't straight up ported from Titanfall 2, it actually had changes specifically for Apex. What are these changes? Well, this map actually takes place inside a simulation dome, which is the same one used on the School Town map right now. And if we go all the way back to Titanfall 2, this simulation dome is not present in the original colony map. And there were a lot of leaks around this time that Respawn was straight up planning to just port a load of old Titanfall 2 maps into Apex Legends, but for whatever reason, they decided not to, because once again, it's been 2 years since this leak. If they wanted to get these maps into Apex, they would be in Apex right now. I'm still holding out hope one day though that we do get Angel City in Apex, because it would be so fun. Respawn probably realised though, after a lot of playtesting, maps specifically made for Titanfall where you're going to have Titans running around in the map, and also pilots with wall run and double jump, didn't mix well with the gameplay and movement of Apex Legends, which is an unfortunate truth of Titanfall maps. They are specifically made to have giant robots walking through them and people who can wall run, not our sad little Legends. During these leaks we did also see Broken Moon in development back when it was called Divided Moon, and honestly, leaked version was very similar to the original Broken Moon when it first came out, apart from one key thing. Broken Moon was originally going to have floating islands littered around the map. I mean, just look at that. That would be pretty cool to fight on, but it would definitely be very disorientating. Although this is like the ultimate method to get high ground, just have the ground take you high. I can definitely see why Respawn scrapped this one, because it is a cool gimmick, but there are so many legend abilities that I can see clashing with this. Like, if you put a conduit ult down on there, is it really going to work? If you put an altar tactical through there, is it really going to work? Considering at the start of the season, if you put an altar portal into an armory, it would crash the server. I dread to think what would happen to the server if you put an altar portal onto one of these. There's one thing from these leaks though that Respawn scrapped, which honestly was a good idea for Respawn to scrap. This thing being a firing range rework. It was leaked at the time that Respawn were reworking the firing range to add more accessibility, like new ways to shoot the dummies, new buttons to change how the targets work, and just tiny little buttons that would change various aspects of the firing range. But luckily Respawn scrapped this to go with a bigger firing range overhaul where they would just straight up replace the firing range and completely rework every aspect of it. So luckily we didn't get stuck with these dumb buttons, and instead we went to this beautiful place, which I mean, look back to the old firing range. This new one is 10 times better and you can't deny it. Plus we get the Nessie Easter eggs. If Respawn never went through with making a new firing range, we would have never had the Nessie challenges, which would have sucked. Before the original firing range rework was cancelled, Respawn did get quite deep in, as we saw from this image they published, which showed in the background of the original firing range there was some new buildings. But that was the last we ever heard of that, and 2 to 3 seasons later I think we did get the revamped brand's new firing range. Obviously, maybe not everything in this video was scrapped, because Respawn are known to take concepts that they had 5 years ago and then reuse them in Apex. But for now, I would assume a lot of this stuff is no longer in development for one reason or another. I'm sure though eventually we will see some of this stuff come in the future. But let's not dwell on the past. Well, actually, let's keep dwelling on the past and look at the stuff people are mad at Respawn for removing from Apex, because surprisingly, there's a lot of stuff people just hate Respawn for removing. First of all, one of the more hated things they removed was back in Season 18, where Respawn thought, for some reason, these ranked rewards were a little too good, so they removed skydive trails from the rank rewards and replaced them with a banner frame, which in my opinion was pretty silly, mostly because skydive trails are now only obtainable if you buy a prestige skin that comes bundled with a skydive trail, making them a very elusive cosmetic, so you can kind of see why Respawn removed them from being a free reward. I don't think it would be as dumb though if Respawn gave us an alternate way to get skydive trails, say in the battle pass or something. For this next thing though, a lot of you might not remember this being in the game because it was so long ago now, which is crazy to think about, because back in Season 8, Respawn removed something that should have gone right here, and this was a spectator icon, which was in the game from Season 1 to 7. Essentially, all it showed you is how many people were spectating you after you killed them, which, you know, no pressure, but there's 6 people spectating you right now, you better not fumble. Now, as cool as this was, I do see why this was removed, because obviously people are going to be more likely to cheat if they think nobody's spectating them. So, more cheaters can be caught in the act. Basically, the spectator icon was a cool flex when a lot of people were watching you, but it also gave cheaters insight when to stop cheating. One thing that isn't really OG because it was more recently removed was Watson's special revive animation. If you're not aware, only a few legends have a special revive animation and everybody loves them because they are so rare, but recently Watson's special revive animation was locked behind a perk. The perk it was locked behind is the amped revive perk where you revive enemies to 50 HP. So this animation unfortunately now only plays if you have the perk active. I guess it does add more readability to Watson, so you know that the person that she's reviving is going to have more health, but it also takes a massive amount of personality away from her. And I just think it's a bit sad that we lost this one, because I mean, this animation, it's cool, you can't even deny it. So it wasn't entirely removed, but depending on your perk preference, you might never see it again. This next one though, I think this is the most controversial thing that has ever been removed from Apex. Like, you ask anybody and they will say they miss it to some degree, and this is the Lifeline Revive Shield. This was removed back in Season 9, and all it was essentially a shield with unlimited health that went up anytime you dropped Lifeline's drone on a friendly to revive them, and a lot of people were using this in 1v1 fights to great advantage. And instead of giving it a health bar or some similar system, Respawn just straight up removed it, and since then Lifeline has never truly been the same. She still has the trackers that actually reflect if you use the revive shield, so these are now very rare trackers because you can't level them up anymore. And since she lost the shield, she has become a lot more of a support role than a combat medic role. The next thing is something a bit silly that was removed, but honestly I really miss, and I hope Respawn kind of add it back in some way, because back in the old version of the firing range, which was pre-season 17, there were these weird type of targets, and if you stood on the back and the top of these targets and shot them, they would fling you, which could lead to some really cool movement courses. And basically, I just want these back, please. The new firing range is cool and all, but I can't fling myself. But also something that was removed from Stormpoint, which I kind of miss, were these armories. These armories were added back in Season 13 and were essentially a mini game that allowed you to fight NPCs to get rewards, which were specifically tailored to your loadout, which was a really cool system that was unfortunately being removed, because back in Season 19, when the storm hit Stormpoint, it basically tore all of these armories open. So they still exist as a small point of interest, but they don't exist in the way they used to. This was a really cool system, but it did become a gimmick in the end, and a lot of people elected just not to go in these because you lose like 2 minutes of fighting just to get a few items. I guess it shows that the best map gimmicks are the ones that you spend very little time on, like the armories on King's Canyon or the gravity cannons. Speaking of map features that were removed, there's one map feature that people have been begging to be added back every single season, and this is the OG train on World's Edge. And with this one, Respawn did a little trolling. Basically, when World's Edge first came out, up until its first map update, it had a train that just went around the map in circles. You could land on this train, you could fight on it, you could have fun on it. It was really cool just to have a moving aspect of the map. But unfortunately, come Season 4, it went. Because the whole map split open, unfortunately the train was also affected and it had to come to a stop. You can still see remnants of the train around the map today. And since then, we've only had it back in two ways. We had it back in the Genesis event, where Respawn brought back the first version of World's Edge for 2 weeks, and then we had it back in a bit of a troll way back in the Harbingers event, where they brought a Halloween version of World's Edge. In the promotional content for this event, they were saying the train is returning, but when the event released, it did return, but not in the way you would expect. Yeah, you would try to use it and it would just laugh at you. No, the train didn't work, and we've not seen the train since then. I hope we do see it again one day though. I can't keep making this video though talking about stuff that was removed that people want back without talking about arenas. Yes, back in Season 16, you've all heard the story, arenas was removed after being released as a permanent mode that was going to stay in the game forever. And since then, people have wanted it back because they crave a 3v3 Apex experience. Since then, Respawn have said it basically is gonna come back. You're just gonna have to wait 1 to 2 years, so it is coming back. But I feel like people are blinded by nostalgia. When they actually play arenas again, they'll be like, let me just go play TDM or something. And I think Apex Mobile is a similar case, because Apex Mobile was a version of Apex released in 2022 for mobile phones. The weird thing is, it diverged from normal Apex. It had different legends, it had different maps, and it had some different gameplay systems, which made it really interesting to see as an Apex fan. Unfortunately, while it was active, it wasn't earning as much as expected. So, after a year, the plug was unfortunately pulled on the game. While it was active, there were so many issues and dramas within the game about devs not patching certain things and certain controversial movement techs. It was kind of a mess. People say they missed this game, but honestly, at the time, they kind of hated it. Still, it would be so nice if one day Respawn decided to port some of the content over. I mean, even some of the skins over to main Apex. Look at this. This was an Apex Mobile exclusive skin, which has never been used since Apex Mobile was shut down. It would be so cool if we could get this in main Apex. But maybe there's some sort of technical limitation I'm overlooking. Although Respawn may have planned to add some mobile stuff at one point and it probably got cancelled. Speaking of getting cancelled, there were many things Respawn were going to add to Apex that got cancelled before they added them. And we know about a lot of the stuff that got cancelled or lost, like COVID skins, like brutal finishes, like hidden heirloom animations, and many more things we will be going over. And to go over them in the most efficient way, I'm going to be tier listing all these scrap features and things, as you can see here, although I'm sure you won't be able to understand most of these. but you will very soon. So to start off this grand tier list, we're starting with a bang. We're starting with a scrapped finisher that was seemingly scrapped before Apex came out, and this was a brutal finisher where the legend puts their foot on someone's chest and just shoots them in the head. Yeah, it's really like that. When I originally rendered this a few years ago, I rendered it with Bliss because it seems like something he would do, but it's not his finisher. Still super brutal and super cool, and it's getting rated an S, a big bang to start. But next we're going to tier list something I would have really liked, a scrapped part of Mirage's tactical, because essentially back in season 6, Shrugtal datamined a buff for Mirage where when enemies shot his decoys, it would have flashbanged them, which is absolutely awesome. I mean, this would have been super annoying against anybody going against it, but the idea of sending your decoy around a corner, flashing enemies and then rolling in and taking out those enemies is just too cool to avoid. So that's getting an A, but if I wasn't an ex-Mirage main, I would have probably rated it a lot lower because it seems very annoying to fight against. For the next thing to rate though, it's going to be quite controversial. The ammo box. This has a long history of showing up in leaks and getting data mined, but we never got it. It seemed like Respawn planned for this to be a survival item that you throw down and just take ammo from, but personally I do think this was reworked into Ballistic's Ultimate where he gives his whole team unlimited ammo. I don't think this is coming, and I think it's super dumb, so it's going in D tier, our first D tier of the video. It sucks, but it has to be done. But for this next one, and the next few, I think a lot of you will agree with me, because the next item to tier list is the badge Twitch drop. We only got this once, and the thing I'm talking about being scrapped is the ideas of badges coming out in Twitch drops. Respawn did it once, had loads and loads of issues with it, and then never did it again. It's a shame because these badges are really cool and nobody knows what they are. I luckily got one at the time, but a lot of people lost theirs, and now unfortunately Twitch drops are reduced to really bad rare skins. So I'm going to put this at an A because it's awesome, and I wish Respawn continued this, but unfortunately they're not. This next item we're tier listing is going to be a fan favourite, unlike one other skin coming up in this tier list, but this is the COVID flatline. This was data mined in the files back when COVID started, and everybody thought it was going to be released for a COVID fundraiser inside Apex Legends, but it never released. And it's a shame because this is a massive fan favourite unreleased skin due to Watson and a mask on the side of it, and just a really awesome look of it. This never released, it got removed from the files a few years ago. I don't think it's ever coming, but it's one of the most iconic and best skins in Apex, and it would have most likely been free, or going towards a charity, so that's going to have to go in an S spot. We are never going to see this again, and it's a huge fan favourite. Rest in peace. But for the next thing we're rating, I actually talked about this a few days ago, and this is the cryo grenade. This was added to the files 2 years ago, and everybody thought it was coming, and the fact that they also added it in Apex Mobile made everyone think it was going to come even more, but it never came, and it turned out to be a prototype ability for Catalyst, which never released because obviously she doesn't have ice abilities now. So this is never going to come out. It was a testing. I think it would have been cool, but it would have been super annoying to battle with ice abilities. As we can tell by Mate in Overwatch, she is not fun to fight against. So I'm going to put this at a B tier. It would have been cool, but also annoying. This next item is about scrap skins, and if you like scrap skins, stay a little longer. But this is the Chinatown Market event, which was scrapped a few weeks before it came out due to some drama in the Chinatown company, and then the company rebranded and came out as Market. So we got the Market event. So unfortunately, we lost the Chinatown branded skins and they got rebranded to Market. So we're never going to see them again, but I don't think everybody's too fussed because we basically got clones of them a few months later. Plus, personally, in my opinion, these skins aren't the best looking, so you're going down to D tier. I'm sorry, someone has to be there, as well as the ammo box. The next item we're going to tier is actually 3 separate things. They are 3 data mined and scrapped arena features. One of them was seemingly a mini arena battle pass, and the other 2 were arena related perks. So when you were in the arenas mode, you would have been able to summon the circle closer to you for one match, or start the game with a fully charged ultimate. And I think these would have been really cool in arenas, and could have potentially saved the game mode from getting deleted because nobody played it. A mini battle pass would have brought plenty of people to arenas, and also perks you could have bought to influence the flow of the game would have been awesome. So this is going to A tier, just because if it came into the game, it could have genuinely saved arenas, although I'm sure many of you are happy arenas died. But if that makes you sad, trust me, one of the future tiers is going to make you a lot more sad. But moving on to the next thing to rate, the Fight Night music pack. The Fight Night event happened back in season 7, if I do recall correctly, and it was one of the only collection events to come without a music pack, despite having a really cool theme in the trailer. And of course, course, if you've heard the music from the Fight Night trailer, you know how much of a banger it is. But it turns out the reason we couldn't get the music pack in game is because the people who made the music made it a YouTube exclusive track, so it could only be uploaded to YouTube and not Apex. So that's a shame, and I really love this music pack, although it's not important enough to be at a high tier, so I'm putting it at C. My next decision may be pretty controversial, but next we're talking about the scrapped Goliath. Goliath was originally a boss that was leaked by Thor and Smash to be coming to Storm Point, and basically it'll just be a prowler that damages you a lot and has a big health bar. But before Storm Point released, Respawn did scrap it, most likely because it was too annoying to fight against if you didn't want to fight a 3000 HP beast that can probably knock you over with one hit. Although there have been rumblings of it potentially arriving in the future, I'm quite dubious about it because I know Respawn don't really want to introduce a huge health pool boss into the map that could ruin your game. So I'm going to put this at B tier. It seemed like a cool idea, but like most things, it probably wouldn't have been fun in practice. Still, maybe if the boss is in a locked away room where you can enter and exit at will, it would be pretty cool. Next, we have the Crypto Heirloom Optic, but it isn't really what it sounds like. This was data mined around 2 years ago and was basically an heirloom rarity sight, so it would have been a red sight that gave you some sort of extra ability. We theorized when you aim down sights it could sonar people through walls, or it could give you extra aim assist or something, but we will never know because it's been a while since it was last data mined and it's not come to the game, and we've seen no traces of it since. Honestly, I think this would have been so awesome, and there's so much potential in this. Literally, imagine getting an optic from a care package, putting it on your gun and having a slight advantage. It would have been a really cool gameplay aspect, and if it did have like sonars, it could have made for a balanced but somewhat OP item. So I rate this an S because I would genuinely love to see this in the game at one point. Next, we just have a ton of scrap skins. There's been so many scrap skins over Apex's lifecycle that we've never got, and I would imagine most of them aren't going to come. Some are extremely cool, some are extremely boring, and honestly, the fact that most of these didn't come most likely saved a lot of us a lot of money, so all the scrap skins are going to have to go at C tier. I would have liked you, but honestly, I can live without you. For the next item we're going to put on the tier list, we have the Slamfire Bolt. This was leaked quite a while ago and was basically a hop-up that you put on your gun. We don't know which gun, but it allowed automatic fire with super increased recoil. In my opinion, if this hop-up was added, it would have gone on the P2020 because it just seems like something that would work on there, you know, give it auto fire at the cost of increased recoil. It would have been a fun excuse to try the P2020, so I'm going to put this at A tier. Hopefully we do see this one day though. But moving on, for the next item on the tier list, we have the scrapped Legend class abilities that was scrapped from the class rework a few months ago. Basically, we have 3 that we know of. One was Death Box Insight that allows you to see loot inside death boxes. Not too sure what that means. Second, we have Evo Boost that basically gives you Evo Shield after every kill for free, which is really cool and is basically an official health siphon. And then we have Kill Boost, which would have reduced ultimate cooldown after each kill. This sounds like it had a lot of potential to make classes matter a lot more than they currently do, although with the strength of these abilities, it sounds hard to balance them all to be on the same level playing field. For this reason, and the fact that pros probably would have complained about it when it came out because they have to memorize more abilities related to Legends, this is going on B tier. The next thing we're going to put on the list is pretty self-explanatory. This is an animation that was made for the Watson Heirloom, but unfortunately it didn't come out by the time it was released. Basically, she just put a Nessie on the gun, and then a bird came and kicked the Nessie off. It's a shame that this didn't come, but now with the new Heirloom recolors adding new animations, maybe one day this shall return under a Watson Heirloom recolor. But because there's a Nessie in it and it's so wholesome, this is taking an easy S tier. For the next item, I think a lot of you have been waiting for this, because this is Pariah, a legend who was leaked back in Season 6 and had a really cool hooded design with fire on their face. The thing is, this legend wasn't truly scrapped. They were turned into Seer later on in development, but they lost this really cool hood up design. Now, I like Seer's design, I really do, but this is 10 times cooler. I am so sorry, and I really wish we got this design. And if you're doubting me that Pariah was changed to Seer later in development, don't, because Seer's Heirloom has an Easter egg where he writes Pariah down and crosses it out. So checkmate atheists. And because this design is really cool, we're going to place it in A. But don't leave yet, because we have got some really awesome ones for the last tiers. Because next tier, we have PvE as a mode. If you're not aware, Apex was seemingly originally developed to have a PvE mode, but it was later scrapped. When Apex first came out, there were a lot of traces of PvE in the files, but unfortunately, they've slowly disappeared. We have got small PvE modes over the years, but nothing would have compared to a full PvE mode. Although I have a counterpoint, PvE modes in games that don't focus on PvE do get dry very quickly, so I feel like Respawn stretching their resources out between Battle Royale and PvE would have kind of ruined the game, so I'm going to put this at a B. It would have been cool, but I see the reason it was most likely scrapped. For the next item on the tier list, we have the original concept that Legends were going to wear pilot helmets because they were going to be pilots. The designs are very cool, and it's really weird seeing Gibraltar and Wraith with pilot helmets that are officially made for them. But honestly, I really love the current personality of Wraith and other Legends, and I think making these characters pilots and wear pilot helmets would have taken a lot of personality away from them, as cool as it looks. But because I love Titanfall so much and it does look extremely cool, this is going in a B tier. I would kind of like to see a collection event with pilot helmet Legends. And the final item on the tier list, explosive ammo. Yes, this was data mined. This was going to be released, or at least was tested at some point, but luckily Respawn didn't release it. Now, it sounds really cool and fun to fight with, but in a battle royale, do you really want to be fighting against explosive ammo? Something that could blow up a door immediately, or where people could kill you without even having a direct line of sight just by shooting a wall around you? No, it sounds extremely dumb, and it would have taken a lot of balancing to make it a viable item. Like, the fact that we can't even balance the R99 these days shows us that explosive ammo would just be no fun at all. So unfortunately, this is going to be our final D tier of the day, finishing the tier list. Yes, my opinions are probably going to annoy some of you, but honestly, after playing this game for so long, I think most of these scrap things happen for the best. I can see the reasoning, and I think Apex is in a better place today than it would have been if these released. Now, in this video, we have talked about removed and scrapped legend abilities, so let's finish off with pretty much most major scrapped abilities we know of. Starting off with a very interesting legend that got leaked called Phantom, and we think Phantom was actually Respawn's attempt to bring Fade to Apex PC, because if you take a closer look at Phantom's abilities, his ultimate is literally just Fade's ultimate from Apex Mobile. A void grenade where you just drop a grenade and it sends everybody in the area into the void. The thing that may dispute the Fade theory though a bit is the fact that this legend's tactical ability was hook shot, where you could just hook onto a wall, instead of Fade's notorious ability of being able to phase rewind, so this one might stay a mystery for longer than we want it to. But hey, I'm still holding out hope that one day we see an older, cooler Fade come into PC, because that guy has so much potential. Of course though, in this video, I can't go the whole video without mentioning Forge. Yes, Forge is the infamous legend that Respawn designs literally just to troll people data mine in the game, so they deliberately put Forge in the game files so people would find him, report on him, and then they just said, yeah, no, we trolled you guys, Forge is fake, and Revenant is actually coming next season. And that moment definitely went down in Apex history, but when we look at the Forge abilities today, they are weirdly similar to the Final Fantasy sword we got back in the Final Fantasy event, where you could use the sword as a weapon. I mean, just look at this. You have Ground Slam, which was just straight up a thing you could do with a sword, KO Punch, where you could jump forward in a direction and then slam into the ground, which was actually really similar to one of the sword's abilities. And you also have 1-2 and On the Ropes, and when you combine these two abilities of bull rushing and also enhancing your melee to do more damage, it kind of seems very similar to the overcharge you could put on the Final Fantasy sword. So maybe Respawn looks back at Forge and were like, let's just turn him into a weapon. And you know what? I'm absolutely fine with that, because if Forge ever came back, I would like him to have different abilities, because these seem just kind of gimmicky. One thing that, hot take, is pretty gimmicky also is Revenant Reborn's original abilities, which we saw in leaks ages ago, but Respawn changed them before Rev Reborn came out, and now he is how he is, the living mini-boss of Apex. Luckily though, we have a benefit when talking about Revenant Reborn's original leaked abilities. Even though they got scrapped for us, they didn't for Apex Mobile China. Apex Mobile China added this guy, which is just straight up Revenant Reborn's old abilities. We actually learned about Revenant Reborn's scrapped abilities straight from a Respawn developer, and one of them will make you very sad. First of all, his scrapped ultimate was a 1v1 Shadow Realm, where he could select a random enemy and pull them into a Shadow Realm where only him and the enemy would be there and they could 1v1. But unfortunately, it was scrapped to Respawn devs not feeling that they could get enough benefit from what should be Revenant's most powerful ability. But here's the kicker. Revenant Reborn's original passive passive was going to be wall running, straight up confirmed by a developer. But unfortunately, after a lot of testing, the devs did find out this ability was just simply too situational, and a lot of the maps in Apex just aren't designed for wall running in mind, and apparently it was just not consistently useful. On that note also, the next map, which has been leaked for a long time, was originally going to have a wall running gimmick apparently, until that was reportedly also scrapped. So for those wall running hopers, I think it's definitely off the table for a long time now, because it's been scrapped twice in the last year. And I'm sure the main people who are sad about wall running getting scrapped are Titanfall fans, so let's make them either happy or sad. I can't really tell what this will make them. As Bliss, yeah, this guy was originally meant to be a legend, and he's actually been leaked twice. First of all, he was leaked in the very early days of Apex Legends, and he has some really mediocre abilities, especially if you look at them today. But then around 2 years later, a new set of abilities been testing for him got leaked, and they were definitely notably better. I mean, he literally had a Titan ultimate that he could cool down, and the Titan would suppress a certain area. You couldn't actually get into this Titan, it was just an auto Titan that would lay down fire on a select area. He also had, guess what, wall running as a passive. Respawn have really been toying with wall running, but it just never worked, I guess. And his tactical was also called My Ring, My Rules, where he created a zone powered by the ring. So basically I just create a smaller ring inside the ring to damage enemies. Sounds pretty powerful, I can't lie. And I feel like Respawn scrapped this tactical ability because loads of people were complaining about the ring flare mode back in season 8, where in this mode there was just a random chance at any location in the map a ring would appear and force everybody to move, majorly disrupting the flow of a lot of fights. Maybe if we're lucky though in the future, Bliss could come back as a legend, but right now Bliss is in a weird position because last year it was revealed that Respawn were working on a new Titanfall / Apex game where Bliss was the main character, but unfortunately it got scrapped, which is becoming a scary pattern in the development of Titanfall games. So basically, could Bliss come one day? I don't really know, and I don't think Respawn knows either. But this has been several years of videos put into one video again, so I hope you enjoy it. And I tried to cut out the stuff getting repeated this time. There were a few things that did get repeated, but if I cut it out, it would just make no sense. But subscribe if you want to hear about more things that got removed.